Georgia O'Keeffe, trendsetting female artist in the 1920s, was born on November 15th, 1887 in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. She had studied for many years before moving back and forth between Chicago, New York, Virginia, and other places. Along the way on her road to fame, she faced poverty and illness. She took
Georgia O'Keeffe was a classically trained visual artist, and she wanted to learn in New York. She left Wisconsin, moved to the South, moved to New York to learn how to paint in the way of the masters. And then she decided that the way for her was the path of disruption, and so she went her own way.
This is at the Art Students League, where she learned realist painting artistry from William Merritt Chase, F. Lewis Mora, and Kenyon Cox. One of her artworks still lives, A Dead Rabbit with Copper Pot in 1908, had earned Georgia the prize to attend the League Summer School in Lake George, New York. O'Keeffe began to try new techniques and experiments with her art, distancing away from realism and developing her own visual expression through more abstract work. In 1915, Georgia started a series of abstract drawings, making her one of the first American artists to use pure abstraction, according to the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum. Georgia had mailed some of her artworks to Anna Pulitzer, a friend and former classmate who showed her work to Stieglitz, a very known and influential art dealer. Amazed by Georgia's work, she and Stieglitz became acquaintances, and he exhibited 10 of her paintings without her knowing at 291 in 1916. In 1917, Stieglitz presented her with her first solo art show. A year later, she moved back to New York, and Stieglitz had found her a place for her to live and continue her work. Soon after, Stieglitz and Georgia realized they had a love connection between them and began an affair. Stieglitz divorced his wife, and him and Georgia got married in 1924. Stieglitz had been 23 years older than Georgia, but she had been his muse, and because of this, he took and created over 300 photographs of her, including both portraits and nudes. Inspired by the modern art movement, Georgia started to experiment with perspective, painting larger-scale close-ups of flowers, the first of her which was Petunia No. 2, which was exhibited in 1925, followed by her artworks including Black Iris in 1926 and Oriental Poppies in 1928. O'Keeffe also began to develop a newfound interest in New York City skyscrapers, a symbol of modernity.
And eventually, it was her fearlessness that got her the attention of Mr. Stieglitz. That's what it was. I mean, don't get me wrong, her visuals, as you guys have seen, they're compelling, and her expressions of the feminine form, her freedom in looking into color and looking into shape and exploring the female body was all incredibly innovative and raw. But more than anything, I think it was the fierceness of her spirit that led her to be the woman that she was. And
these inspired her paintings City Night in 1926 and Shelton Hall, New York No. 1 in 1926 as well. After multiple solo exhibitions, she had her first retrospective, Paintings by Georgia O'Keeffe, which opened at the Brooklyn Museum in 1927. In 1929, Georgia found a new direction for her artwork when she made her first of many visits to northern New Mexico. The landscape and architecture of the local Navajo culture greatly inspired her, and because of this, she returned every summer to paint. During her time in New Mexico, she had produced her iconic paintings, which included Black Cross, New Mexico in 1929 and Cow's Skull, Red, White, and Blue in 1931. On July 13, 1946, her husband Stieglitz died of a fatal stroke at the age of 82. According to ArtNet News, Georgia was known as one of the most significant and revolutionary artists. The painter Georgia O'Keeffe rose to prominence for her stylized renditions of New York City skyscrapers, New Mexico landscapes, and imposing paintings of flowers in bloom. In Georgia's later years of her life, she began to lose her eyesight because of a molecular degeneration. With the help of her assistants, she furthermore continued to make art. In 1976, she wrote the best-selling book, Georgia O'Keeffe. Sadly, Georgia O'Keeffe died on March 6, 1986 in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
So Georgia O'Keeffe broke into a world that was dominated by men who really didn't want to hear the words or see the visuals created by women. And what I think is so significant about her contribution is that she walked into that world with a complete sense of disregard for their rules.
Analysis of Petunia No. 2. Georgia O'Keeffe's very first large-scale painting of a flower, Petunia No. 2, was a huge milestone in her career. Georgia stated that, "Nobody really sees a flower, really, it is so small, we haven't time, and to see takes time, so I said to myself, I'll paint what I see, what the flower is to me, but I'll paint it big and they will be surprised into taking time to look at it." She said this because critics said that it symbolized the female genitalia, but she painted it in the large size that she did to show that it is simply just a flower. She wanted to show them the beauty and essence of a flower, and that's exactly what she did.